Great. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for sticking around for our last panel of the day. Like Chris said, my name is Alexis Bailey. I'm the Vice President of Government Affairs for NJBIA. I handle labor and employment issues for our team, so I'm happy to be up here today with this great panel to talk about some of the workforce challenges for infrastructure. So we are joined by Dr. Houshmand from Rowan University, Aaron Fichtner, President of the New Jersey Council of County Colleges, Assistant Commissioner Lesley Hirsch from the Department of Labor, Kate Gibbs from ELEC 825, Deputy Director there, and Don Zuzio from T&M Associates. So happy to have kind of a mix of the administration, our higher ed partners, labor, as well as industry to talk about this really important topic. So as we discussed in the last panel, we talked a lot about the dollars that are coming into the state, a lot of the projects that we're working on so far, but we know that funding is just one part of the equation as we look at infrastructure. And making sure that we have the workforce to execute on all these projects that we just talked about and all this money that's coming into the state over the next decade is really critical to make sure that we're propelling us forward into the future. So I want to start with Assistant Commissioner Hirsch. Can you tell us a little bit about where we are right now in our workforce across infrastructure jobs and where we need to be to really fulfill these new projects going forward?
Okay, so everybody can hear me? I'm going to do just a quick overview of what exactly we're talking about, because we heard in great detail a lot about the capital plans that the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey have underway, as well as the Department of Transportation. But I'm not sure that we all have a real handle on exactly what this bipartisan infrastructure law is, also known as the infrastructure, I think I've managed to forget what it stands for, IIJA. Thank you, and thank you. The IIJA, but we'll call it the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act. So there are really basically three kinds of projects that are going to be funded through the BIL. There'll be transportation projects, climate, energy, and environment projects, and broadband projects. So the transportation projects will repair roads and bridges, reinvest in railways, and improve public transportation and safety. Climate is about modernizing the grid, weatherizing homes, schools, and businesses, funding programs to support the development and deployment of clean energy technologies, and that includes the EV charging stations we heard about. And in terms of broadband, we also have a big push for high-speed internet, especially in underserved areas. So there's a really important note to be made about the BIL, and that is that it's probably the first of its kind that really is focusing on the distribution of opportunities and the distribution of money that's going out to underserved areas. And that means rural areas should be receiving more than their fair share, if the fair share is measured by past performance in federal funding, as will be areas that have a majority minority population. Another important point is that there's going to be an emphasis on good jobs, and that means that labor will play an important role. There will be, prevailing wage laws that will be in effect, like any other federally funded project. So I do believe that I might have slightly different numbers. My numbers are coming from the White House, saying that we're looking at about $13.5 billion in New Jersey. $6.8 billion of that is highway aid. So it's kind of a good little known fact here that the American Society of Civil Engineers gives New Jersey a D+ grade on its infrastructure report card, and has done so for decades. So it's really about time, as all of us know who drive every day to work, that $6.8 billion in highway aid will go to good use. $1.1 billion for bridge replacement and repairs, as we've heard. $4.1 billion over 5 years to improve public transportation. $1 billion for over 5 years for water infrastructure, and the list goes on, including wildfire prevention, cybersecurity, EV charging stations, airport development. But those are really the big areas: bridges, highways, public transportation, and water infrastructure. So the estimated number of jobs from a variety of sources, it varies quite a bit, and I'll explain why in just a bit. Is that we're looking nationally at 700,000 new jobs per year over the next 5 years. 700,000 jobs per year, I will say that again. My back of the envelope estimate, based on the percentage of jobs that we have in the nation, is that we're looking at approximately 20,000 jobs per year, or a total of 100,000 jobs over 5 years in New Jersey alone. It's very difficult to precisely estimate what the workforce will be, given that we don't know exactly what the projects will be. About 1/10 of the money has been distributed nationally, and so we're really not looking at, we're looking really down the road now, and everything is sliding back, I think, about a year. We were looking at a 2022 full implementation, I think, because we've just hit a 1-year mark on the passage of the bipartisan infrastructure law, but we are really going into implementation into 2023. There'll be a variety of projects. These projects are going to have a variety of sizes. They're going to be timed over a period of 5 years, and their geographic locations is undetermined. And even though we're looking at 50% of the money, this $13.5 billion coming to New Jersey, is only 50% of the money coming to New Jersey. That's the money that's coming to us in a block grant. The rest of the money, about 39% of the money that we're going to be getting, is going to be competitive. And each one of the projects is going to be competitively bid. Some of them will be for school districts, some of them will be for businesses, some of them will be for local and tribal governments. So there will be a number of different opportunities for different players. Trying to get a handle on it right now, exactly what we're looking at, is kind of difficult, but I'm going to give you a pretty good guess, I hope. So I think just at the 10,000 foot level, we're looking at about 4,500 to 5,000 new construction jobs a year over the next 5 years. These are new construction jobs. About 4,000 transportation and material moving jobs per year, and about 4,500 new manufacturing jobs. Dr. Kennedy, if you're in the audience, that should come as a happy piece of news. The current estimates are that more than half of the jobs that will be created, about 10,000 a year, are going to be for people without a high school diploma. You don't have to have a high school diploma in order to be able to land some of these material moving and transportation jobs. Another 30% will be for people with more than diploma or its equivalent, but less than a bachelor's degree, and thus the presence of our community colleges and the importance of them as we go forward. And then more than half of those jobs will require 6 months or less of training. And so we're really looking at some very quick startup types of jobs for people who are not yet prepared. What are the occupations? Now, I think we've discussed this. Many of you know, if you've been involved in any kind of infrastructure project, that the very first part of this is, environmental review, a lot of planning, a lot of design, a lot of engineering work. And so the first year generally is very heavy on architecture, engineering, and review. Then we proceed to the next piece, which is the beginning of implementation, and that is we progress to construction. And after that, we progress to maintenance and operations. To the extent that we're looking at highways and bridges, not a whole heck of a lot of that money is going to be going into operations because they just operate, but certainly we'll hope to have some of that money left over for maintenance. So 60% of the jobs that I've just talked about, of those 20,000 per year, should be in transportation. I'm going to move on because I know we have plenty to cover here, but if there are questions about wages, I'd be happy to go into a little bit more detail right now, a little bit later, on what the wages look like in those jobs. In terms of workforce demographics, I think this is a super important point to make, and especially since there is such a focus on distributing opportunity through the BIL and also through the Inflation Reduction Act, which we're probably going to talk a little bit about in this conversation as well. That's the climate act that we've all been hearing about that passed this past summer. In construction, it will not come as a terrible surprise to many of you that 90% of our construction workforce is male. 80% of it is white, compared to 67% of our workforce overall. The bright spot is that construction does have an overrepresentation of Latino workers. And less of a bright spot here is that we're talking about a fairly aging workforce. Over 20% of the construction workforce is 55 or older, with apologies to those of us who are 55 or older. That is aging. In the utilities workforce, we're looking at 80% male, 80% white, and an underrepresentation of Latino workers, and 30%, even more, of an aging workforce there. So transportation, we know that we've heard, quite a bit already about our natural advantages when it comes to transportation in New Jersey. We have a huge population density within 100 miles. Trucking carries the last mile of every good that is delivered to everybody. We have 1,300 miles of freight. We have the biggest port in the Atlantic coast. We also know that Paulsboro and Salem ports are undergoing tremendous investment already. We can expect that those ports will receive additional funding, not just through capital plans, but also through the bipartisan infrastructure law, as well as the Atlantic City International Airport, which should be seeing some benefits from the BIL. So transportation right now employs about 125,000 people. So we're looking at another 5,000 or so per year. The balance of more than half of those are going to be transportation jobs like driving and service and mechanics. The balance, though, we shouldn't be too stereotypical about this, because we're really talking about transportation business too, right? So the balance of those jobs are going to be office, business, and sales, and installation and repair jobs. We're not just looking at driving jobs. So I'm going to summarize here to give time for some of the other people, just to say, if we are looking to add 20,000 jobs, we're going to either need to retrain people who are underemployed or unemployed. We have to bring in new workers, or we're going to have to bring in people from the sidelines. And right now, labor force participation, not just in New Jersey, but around the country, is actually at a fairly low rate. We've been undergoing a steady secular decline over the past 10 years or so. Although we've recovered quite a bit from the pandemic, we're still at about 62% of our workforce is actually in the labor force, meaning they're working or they're looking for work, which means that 2/5 of the working age population in New Jersey is still on the sidelines. And even if we say that out of those 2.5 million people, a majority of them don't want to work or can't work, that still leaves hundreds of thousands of people who can be brought into the labor force. So if we're looking to meet this moment, and to the our state legislators' question about whether we're ready to meet this moment, and we're ready to do so quickly, and I think we probably don't have a choice when it comes certainly to climate reduction, that we're probably going to need to look at bringing people in from the sidelines in order to be able to create that opportunity. And so one great way would be by making the connections between the contractors who are winning the bids, the government bids, and those people who are under and unemployed and not in the labor force. So I know we are in the process of recommending to the U.S. Department of Labor that all jobs that are provided or that are created as a part of the bipartisan infrastructure law be listed as a matter of policy into the National Labor Exchange, and thus can be available to the workforce development system, also to the community colleges, and that means to anybody who is out of a job and looking for a job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Assistant Commissioner. Don, I want to turn it over to you now that we kind of see the lay of the land where we are numbers-wise. You, as an employer working in the engineering space, can you talk a little bit about some of the workforce that you're looking for right now, some of the skills that are in demand and that you're looking forward to in the next couple of years in workers?
Sure. Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. The Assistant Commissioner gave a great hope. I'm in transportation, and those numbers are fantastic. Can we deliver those projects? And that's the challenge. At TNM, we're faced with, like everybody else in the state of New Jersey, the workforce issue. We are not finding the top level, the mid-level engineers that we're looking for. The graduates are not there as much as they used to be in the years past. We're struggling, and work from home, the COVID kind of changed a lot of things, and some industry was benefited from it, others are suffering, and I see it in our staff, the young people that we hired over a Zoom call or a Teams call, and they're going to struggle in the next 5 years. So what we're doing at TNM is we through the TNM Foundation, we actually are supporting the STEM programs. We're supporting scholarships. So we have a very aggressive internship program and we try to keep these interns full-time after they finished. But we're struggling. The competition for compensation it's gotten out of hand, and so we're going to continue to struggle. But the hope of all these projects there, we're a stable company. We're a mid-sized company, and it's difficult to really put ourselves out too much because of our limitations within. But we're gonna struggle, and maybe the rest of the panel will talk about how we entice more engineers to really capture them earlier on in their stage. But the agency are gonna they have the same issues that we have. The DOT was up here, the Port Authority was up here. They have an enormous capital program. They don't have the staff to deliver this, and we're going to struggle. The DEP, we talked about DEP. We talked about the permitting. That permitting and utilities are the two biggest hang-up in every project. And we talked about, the Assistant Commissioner talked about the construction. Well, the construction industry is also going to suffer. Where are these workers? And we got to start. We got to start somewhere. We got to start the schools. I think the commissioner had good ideas to get some of these people from the sidelines and bring them in. During COVID, we lost people through change of career, and we lost through retirement. So it's going to be a challenge. I'm not underestimating that.
So as we look toward trying to meet this challenge that we have to attracting workers, upskilling and reskilling some of our incumbent workers, Kate, I want to turn it over to you because I know ELEC 825 is one of the premier providers for training opportunities in the building trades. Can you talk a little bit about the training opportunities that you provide to people and that you're providing to new members that are coming on into the trades, but also to some of your incumbent workers and how you're preparing them for the future jobs that are out there?
Sure, thank you, Alexis. I'm Kate Gibbs with Engineers Labor Employer Cooperative. We're a labor management fund that is affiliated with the Operating Engineers Local 825. And a labor management fund really takes the nexus where the contractor's interest and the workforce interest intersect. And so whether that's workforce development, whether that's economic development advocacy, we're trying to, any of those mutual points of concern we advocate for. And so, for those of you who don't know, an operating engineer are the men and women who operate heavy construction equipment. So the stuff that looks like, the toy Tonka trucks, that's the stuff that they're running. And so the work that we do, which is different from a lot of other building trades, is that we touch every single part of construction. So for us, an actual building is a very limited amount of work for us. More of what we do, where the rest of the trades are focused on that vertical construction, is horizontal construction. It's demolition, but it's mostly site work, utility work, infrastructure work. So whether that's transportation infrastructure, whether that's water, whether that's energy, whether it's broadband, we're working on every single part of that. And we are a statewide union here in New Jersey, so Local 825 covers the entire state of New Jersey and 5 counties in New York. We have 2 state-of-the-art training centers, one of which I'm sure people drive by all the time, right off of Exit 8A on the Turnpike. If you ever glance over as you're passing Exit 8A, you'll see lots of equipment. That's one of our training centers where we have hundreds of acres. We also have another state-of-the-art training center in our 5 counties in New York, and we're part of our international, recently built a huge state-of-the-art training center in Texas to be able to focus on some of the offshore opportunities. So workforce development has always been something that has been so key to the identity of operating engineers specifically, because from the beginning of when, our logo has a steam gauge. The reason is because the first equipment, you would shovel coal, make steam, and that's what powered, your bulldozer. And something that, our business manager talks about a lot about is that when we went from steam to the engine, when cranes went from being run on cables to being run on hydraulics, we, instead of fighting the new technology, operating engineers have always mastered it through workforce development, so that not only can we be effective in working on the jobs of today, but we can work on the jobs of tomorrow. And mechanics for these types of heavy equipment are actually organized through the operating engineers. So imagine, when your computer isn't working at your desk, imagine how frustrating it is when you're out on a work site, and as the equipment itself gets more and more relies more and more on advanced technologies, GPS, digital, and away from the mechanical, you need both a mechanic and somebody who's almost an IT person. And so as the equipment continues to advance, we've shifted our focus not only to those traditional skills that operating engineers are known for, but also the new equipment, because you need to be able to not only run the new equipment, but troubleshoot it and fix it on a job site so that you don't have delays. And so we're in the process, we're actually the first union in the country. We're going through the process of becoming a technical college. And so we will be able to be our own degree issuing technical college where you will graduate from apprenticeship to a journeyman with an associate's degree. Thank you, Assemblywoman. We're very excited. So our apprentices will have the opportunity to go through the traditional apprentice program and get an associate's degree. Those journeymen and women who went through 10, 20, 30 years ago will be able, we're working with Dr. Fichtner here and Stephanie Staub's in the audience. We're working with the consortium of community colleges and pathways to make sure that we can get credits for the life experience and the apprentice classes that they took a long time ago so that they have that pathway. And it's not only a focus on the equipment, but you know, most of our contractors are owner-operators. They're small family businesses. They start out working in the field and get that entrepreneurial spirit, maybe invest in a piece of equipment. And so having some of that academic education with a business focus and estimating, you know, presentation skills, all of these things are only gonna make, whether it's the operating engineer who turns into a contractor or it's the field operating engineer that becomes a lead, we call, instead of a foreman, we call them lead engineers, or perhaps you know, within the union organization. So we believe that bringing that academic experience into what the building trades have always been so great at, and for 100+ years, academia and the private sector have been trying to replicate the training that the building trades do with on-the-job training and apprenticeship, and it just hasn't been met. And we have, you know, more than 100 years head start on this type of technical training, but we do that really well, and the academic partners we have in New Jersey are second to none. They run the academics, you know, whether it's the community colleges, whether it's the university partners, and so we want to make sure that we're not replicating efforts, but that we're working together so that we can make sure that the right workforce is prepared and that the right entity is providing that in a way that's working in tandem rather than working in competition. And one of the things I want to highlight is that by shifting our focus away from strictly a DOL apprentice process to an educational application process, we were able to add in diversity goals, which we can't do because of federal requirements on how we run our apprentice program. We weren't able to give preference to a woman or to a person of color or to a veteran. And now with the academic focus, we're able to do that. And in our most recent class that we took on, the Earn and Learn class, which we got a DOL grant to help us with, it was a 30-person class, and more than 70% of them are either female, veteran, identify as a person of color, or a combination. And so we can see that by shifting it to that, just by making that small change, we're able to really help build up those numbers. And in terms of the aging workforce, when I first started at the operating engineers in 2014, we had about 6,000 members. We're over 8,000 now. And when I first started, we called we had a dumbbell issue. So when you think about a dumbbell, it's got the skinny bar and the two ends. We had a lot of young people and a lot of old people and nobody in between. And really, when you see that the 2,000 member difference in a very short time, that is because of the educational and workforce development opportunities that we're providing and bringing in folks who may have been involved in some part of the construction industry and needed some upskilling in order to fill out that middle gap. So these are just some of the things I could go on, but really excited to be sitting here with such great partners. And we have seen the same thing that you're seeing, that TNM is seeing out in the field, the gaps that our contractors are waiting for work, because really there are huge gaps in the engineers and the people who review projects and get them deployed within our state agencies. And there are ways to use, in the interim, while we're training this new workforce, there's ways to use folks like TNM and other great engineering. We've got so many great engineering firms in the state. We can use them as complementary staff to review and get projects out the door, which means we don't lose the opportunity of getting those federal funds out the door. And we can backfill some of those engineers and other kind of higher level jobs.
Thanks, Kate. Definitely. I know my colleague Ray can talk about trying to streamline some of those processes at the department level. That's definitely a conversation for another day, but something that's always top of mind for us as well. Erin, I want to turn it over to you because I know you're in a really key position to fill some of those gaps. I know we're talking about a lot of the skills gaps that we're seeing in the workforce, tying it all together between higher ed, business, labor, what everyone needs to get these projects done. And NJBIA has been proud to work with you and your team on the Pathways project. So can you talk a little bit about how you're getting some of those workers off the sidelines into these careers and how you're working with stackable credentials to move people up the career ladders that are available in the space?
Yeah, thank you, Alexis. It's a real honor to be on this panel because I think you see the folks I get the honor to sit with, from our four-year college partners to our state partners to our labor union and business partners. I think we all would agree that this moment that we're facing now with this incredible investment and much needed investment in infrastructure that's going to bring us 18 to 20,000 jobs a year requires us to think very differently about how we work together. And the good news is that we've been working in new ways through our Pathways initiative that really we believe is going to position the state not only to meet the needs here in this industry where we have this incredible job growth, we have this incredible long-standing inequities, we have the need to bring people into an industry that they may not have had opportunities in. And so, as you mentioned, Alexis, about a year and a half ago, with some very generous funding in the state budget, thanks to the legislature and to Governor Murphy, we launched our Pathways to Career Opportunities initiative, which we think is really a model to help us address the workforce issues in this industry, but also across our economy. And so we've launched 10 different centers of workforce innovation, one of which is focused on construction. And the work that that center is doing is really a model for the kinds of work I think we can do on a broader scale to meet this need. And so I want to talk a little bit about that effort as a way to advance this conversation. So we have 10 of these centers of workforce innovation across the economy. One is in construction. We have another one in renewable energy that's obviously closely related to this. But we have other centers in data science, in patient care and healthcare, just across the economy. The idea here is for groups of our community colleges to come together to work to develop new curriculum and new program models in partnership with labor unions, high schools, the workforce development system, four-year colleges and universities to make sure that we are aligning our curriculum and our programs with the changing needs of the economy. So our Center of Workforce Innovation in Construction is led by Hudson County Community College in the north and Rowan College of South Jersey in the south. Hudson County Community College is building a career pathway that will be shared across the state with partners. So everything that our centers do is shared widely across the state so we can implement these programs on scale. So they are developing a dual enrollment program with high schools that will allow high school students to get exposed to construction management career pathways and to begin to earn college credits that help them transition to a degree. We are working with Thomas Edison State University to assess credit for apprenticeship programs so that students who come from an apprenticeship program, as Kate mentioned, would get college credit and then seamlessly be able to continue in a construction management program. And very excited that we're working with Thomas Edison State University to ensure that students that get a associate's degree in construction management have a path to a four-year degree. The idea here, again, is many on-ramps and off-ramps align with the needs of industry so that people can continue to come in and out of the education pipeline, accumulate credits, credentials that help them advance their careers. Rowan College of South Jersey is taking a different approach. They're focusing on water and water infrastructure, but the work that they're doing is partnering with the local vocational high schools and their adult programs to help build pre-apprenticeship programs for people so that adults can get into union apprenticeship programs. But also that adults can get into associate's degree programs in wastewater and water management and hopefully transition to Rowan University in a four-year college through a 3+1 program eventually. So we really think that the Pathway Initiative, and we welcome all of you to continue to be partners in the Pathway work. Our Pathways team is here. Stephanie Staub is leading our work in energy and infrastructure. So please see her afterwards and our Pathways team if you want to work with us on this really incredible effort. But we think we really need to seize this moment to work differently, to break down the silos that I think have far too long separated community colleges from labor unions, from the workforce system, from our four-year partners, and really excited to be on this panel with some really great thinkers that'll help us move forward to meet the needs of this industry, but also to position New Jersey to be a stronger and fairer economy going forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Houshmand, I want to turn it over to you because you've really been a leader under your leadership at Rowan University on bringing everyone together, making a lot of partnerships and opportunities for the community in South Jersey, as well as all of your students at Rowan, particularly in the area of offshore wind. Can you talk a little bit about some of the partnerships that you've created with community colleges in your area, industry, and how that's benefiting your students and really setting them up to be the leaders in these new jobs that are coming forward in the next decade?
Thank you. Good afternoon, and glad to be here. Yes, we started a very aggressive partnership with the county colleges. And the reason for that, for me at least, is that I believe that as a state institution, if your community where you're located is not thriving, then the university will not thrive. So for me, economic development is a key factor as a college president. It's one of the 4 pillars that we pay a tremendous amount of attention to. And we constantly look for other people's money to build infrastructure to share the university. And we have built over $1.5 billion of buildings over the past 10 years, just using partnership with other people, whether it's dorm, whether it's academic buildings, hospitals, hotels, you name it. The partnership with the county colleges started through a 3+1 that I introduced several years ago, where we said that instead of county colleges only offering 2 years of degrees, and then the students transferring into 4-year degrees and paying significantly more money. What we decided to do is for certain workforce-related courses, degrees, construction management, electrical engineering technology, mechanical engineering technology, and areas like that. We decided that we can provide 4-year degrees at the county colleges, where we, as a 4-year institution, develop those degrees, the latter 2 years of it. And then we loan the 3rd year to the county college. We say, here is a curriculum, here is a content. Under 2 conditions, you are allowed to teach those courses. Number 1, the instructor who teaches it, you have to approve the credential. Number 2, the content that you teach should be exactly the content that we gave you because it's our curriculum. If you do that, then you can definitely offer it and charge the students your own tuition, and then the 4th year is on us. And in doing so, we have created a pathway where a total degree is about $30,000. The beauty of this thing is that it's not really competitive. We are not competing with ourselves. We are basically saying that if we allow students to have the opportunity to get the 3rd year at the county college place, it reduces the cost. The county colleges are much more, in my opinion, receptive to students in terms of instruction and taking care of them rather than research universities that are heavily focused on writing grants and research and so. So if you look at the national numbers, you will find that there are roughly 1,600 or so public colleges and universities in this country. By that I mean these are the state's institutions, of which roughly 950 or so are county colleges, and the balance of them are state institutions, the senior institutions. And I believe a national model should be that each one of these senior institutions should partner with a number of those county colleges, and to create a system very similar to what I call a Penn State model, where there is the main campus and there are all these branch campuses where people can go in there, take the 2 years or take 3 years, and then transfer to the main campus, or stay where they are and the campus comes to you. In fact, that's what we have. We now have a model where a student from the county college does not have to step 1 day on that county college to get a degree from there. We actually have what we call a Rowan choice. So the students who apply to Rowan University and they're going to get rejected, instead of us rejecting them, we say, yes, this is another path. You want to live on our campus, you want to be on our dorm, you want to eat the same food as students and go to the same sports, you're welcome to do all of that. You can rent all of that from the university. And then the county college comes and they're students. They lease classroom from us. The students are on our campus. The county college comes to our campus, teaches those kids, and after 2 years of their curriculum, charging them county college tuition, then seamlessly stay at Rowan and finish the next 2 years. So we have created a 4-year community college that's purely residential. Or on the other hand, you could be the entire 4 years away from Rowan University and still get a Rowan degree. And this kind of thing is important because the 900 and so county colleges in this country, these are public properties. We have invested billions of dollars over the years to create them. Right now, at the county colleges, and I'm sorry to say that the enrollment is going down, and the enrollment cliff is coming by 2025. For the next 2 decades, we're going to have a massive drop in the number of 17 and 18-year-olds going to college. You're talking about problem in our labor workforce, it's going to get significantly bigger, unless we do a number of things. The technology that is right now is doing tons of damage to the, what I call it, frontline employees through artificial intelligence, replacing those jobs. That's the opportunity. Because if the county colleges and universities and other entities come and get those frontline employees and retrain them and get them to the next level, then you're talking about millions of people that you can really employ very quickly. And the good thing about the frontline employees is that they're hungry. They want to move up, and they're looking for an opportunity. And they're currently being threatened by AI. And I think that, so there are pathways of senior universities working with the county colleges to create this partnership, and then using the frontline employees from around the country and getting them repurposed and retrained. And I think that would be a solution. Thank you.
Thank you. So there's clearly a lot of synergy, what's going on across the state, and we all have the same goal of getting this workforce trained and ready. So open it to all of you. What should be the main takeaway to our audience today about how we're going to prepare for these new jobs, and what can we do better to collaborate, even more so than we're doing now, to propel us in the next decade?
I want to add one comment that I didn't say in the opening part of my remarks, which is that something we see over and over again is that in our normal apprentice process, application process, there is an objective, in every trade, there's some form of objective test that has to be administered, and you have to take in the top scores from that test, no matter who they are. And it's every trade has a different test. Ours is more spatial, more than traditional algebraic math, but I think for electricians and things, it's different. But it's a work placement test. It's called Work Keys 2. It's 8th grade math. And the biggest challenge we have with diversifying our workforce is that we give out 200 applications. We have to take the top 100 scores ranked, and we can't touch them. And so what happens if kids are in failing schools and aren't educated with basic 8th grade math, they're not going to do well in these placement tests, and now they don't even get on to the second part of the process, which is the interview and other things. So making sure that on the front line, we're all talking about workforce but before they get to any of these opportunities, we need to make sure that at the very least, that thinking about how much New Jersey spends on our education, and that we have kids graduating who can't pass an 8th grade math competency test, that's really hard. And before COVID, I met with somebody from the School Boards Association. They said there were almost 20,000 students who were high school students who were looking for a seat in a VOTEC high school and couldn't get one. And I know from personal experience as a former freeholder that a lot of times what happens with the vocational schools, they become magnet schools for kids escaping failing districts. And so if you're in a district that is not doing well and you care, your parent might advocate to get you into the county VOTEC. And that's wonderful that that person now escaped a failing school district. But now that person is on a college track, not a vocational track, and a kid who really wanted that vocational track isn't getting one. And so I think that the more we can expand the partnerships with the academic institutions, but getting them younger, because I see the problem isn't as immediate as we think it is. It's actually 5-10 years down the line.
Yeah, that's a great point, and definitely something that NJBIA is always thinking about when we talk about workforce development. We talk about that K-12 level, whether it's training and make sure the students have what they need, as well as providing them exposure to all the different opportunities, whether it's an infrastructure job, healthcare. But I know you guys want to jump in, so go ahead.
So I was just going to piggyback on what Kate said, and I think that this is where the new partnerships are really critical. So our community colleges have really ramped up their efforts to build partnerships with the vocational high schools because of this issue of capacity. The community colleges have capacity. I know at Raritan Valley Community College, and I see Jackie, they have an incredible partnership to help students from local high schools get occupational and training programs on a path. The college readiness partnerships our colleges have with high schools to help people be college ready and prepared for college and careers. I think the pre-apprenticeship programs and the investments that the department has made have been critical in this area. So I think we've got to not lose sight on the need to prepare people at younger ages. I totally agree with that, and we've got to think very, very differently about how we do that. I want to just thank President Houshmand for his vision and leadership. I think you see from all of us here that I think we really are on the verge of a new way of thinking about how we prepare and educate people in more equitable ways. And it's very exciting to see the momentum building and really the new thinking that has come to New Jersey. I know President Houshmand's been on this for a couple of years, but I think we've made a lot of progress in the last couple of years, and I think there's a lot more that we can do, but we've got to really think very differently about how we work together. I'm excited to see that we're on the verge of that.
One thing that I would like to recommend to the industry is that you have to work with the universities to create farm systems in order to train the workforce of the future. Because currently universities and colleges are training people without any kind of input from industries. And you send them to you after it's too late, and then you have to go and spend tons of money and retrain them to get them ready to be productive. I think the model that we have created at Rowan, where we engage with the industry at the very early on at the curricular level, is really working very well. I'll give you one example of it. We have a relationship with Lockheed Martin in Morristown, where our students, engineering students, when they enter the engineering from year one, they start working on projects that are confidential to Lockheed, and they work for 4 years in there and as students. And because our curriculum is called the clinical curriculum, so students do a lot of hands-on. And it's remarkable, every single one of those students every year upon graduation, they all get hired an average salary of $85,000. Last year alone, Lockheed Martin hired 120 of our engineers in 1 year. They currently have 400 of them working, and it's because we have created that farm system, and they have no interest in hiring anywhere else. They just go to Rowan and hire them. And I think we need to look at our public universities and really work with them that way to create a system so that we can right-size who you want. I just heard that tons of people are talking, we want engineers, and there aren't engineers. Guess what? Engineers are very, very expensive to train, highly subsidized. I'll tell you at Rowan, for every dollar that the students give us, we spend $5 on them. It's 80 cents to $1 subsidized. It's expensive. And if these students don't have the opportunities to get a job and everything else, it's very hard for them to kind of get involved in this kind of degree program. So I think that partnership where students have a guarantee that upon graduation they're going to get a job, a good job, and stay in this state would be the greatest thing. And I think somehow we have to figure that out.
I think one of the things that people might not hear because they're here, they might hear, centers of innovation or pathways initiatives, is that essentially this is a vision, and it's something that luckily I've known Dr. Fichtner for over a decade now, and I know it's a vision that he's been, harboring, and that is that it takes a village, that we're really talking about not just sector organization, but we're also talking about geographic organization across the various sectors. So, across the age span from high school to community college, degree. I'm sorry? Even down. Sure, absolutely. Even down to the middle schools and the elementary schools. If we're going to start getting people prepared, we have to start early. But just in terms of preparing people for the short-term and longer-term, short-term training and longer-term educational pathways that also are parallel to the career pathways, that it really does take business to be involved with those educational and those workforce bodies in your local community. And, it's difficult because we speak different languages sometimes. Business and labor sometimes speak different languages, and government and business speak different languages. But if we're going to get there, we're going to need to be working together. And so, we're looking at, for example, massive efforts around infrastructure. I think we can all begin to envision an area where if we're going to be putting a lot of money into Route 130 or 1 and 9, I happen to think of 1 and 9 an awful lot because I live in Jersey City. We're talking about putting in massive dollars into renovating 1 and 9. Then Jersey City, North Bergen, the local chambers of commerce, the school district, the county vocational technical, high school district, and the adult district need to be talking together about what it is that they're doing to prepare people now. Not waiting until the RFP comes out, but building that RFP together and planning how they're going to work together. And I think this has been very much part of Aaron's vision to try to actually create that seamless pathway and to bring all players in so that we're participating in that economic development and human capital development in parallel.
Thank you, and we're certainly all in this room happy to be continuing to work together to make sure, like you said, we're all going to the same goal, so let's make sure we're on the same page as we continue to move forward. I think we have time for maybe one audience question, if anyone has a question before we close. Anybody? All right, you guys covered it all. Thank you so much. Thank you all for sticking around.
Lovely to meet you. Lovely to meet you.